Hi, welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm so excited. We've got a full house this week. We've got C.H. Admirand, Anne Rollins, and Anna Harrington. And we haven't had a chance to talk to Anne or Anna before, so this is an extra exciting week. Ladies, thanks for taking the time.
Oh, of course. Good to be here.
And there's also a release this week by Sarah Bennett, so we'll make sure I pop that link in the comments if you haven't gotten it, so you can get it already. And I'll put all of these links in as well. But we're going to start out since CH is an old pro at this. We're going to start with her book this week, and it's The Lion's Den Grace, and it's a Lion's Den book. Can you tell us about that one?
Sure. I may stumble because I'm on deadline in 2 days with another book right now. But The Lion's Saving Grace is my 20th Dragonblade book. Can you believe it?
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's so cool!
Wow. Yeah, it's time flies. But anyway, my hero, this is my first, no, it's not. It's my second injured military hero. Lieutenant Lord Alec Quinton. I changed his name twice. He asked me to, first time. So it's back to what I wanted. It's Alec Quinton. Was in the Battle of Trafalgar, and he was captain of his ship. And unfortunately, he was standing right by one of the 24-pounder guns when a broadside hit them. And yeah, his leg was trapped underneath and they couldn't save it. Partial. So he has a partial leg. So he's gone through a lot, and it's more than just trying to adjust to the fact that you have a phantom limb, but it's how you adjust to whether or not you have the prosthetic leg or not. Or, I mean, some people would have, like, we all saw like movies with the peg leg. He is fortunate in that it's the time, it's 1815 by the time the story starts, not the prologue. And he has a very nice articulated leg. So, but you have to get used to it, because I was trying to put myself in his place, imagining what it was like trying to fit my leg into, the leg itself. And I mean, it has padding, but not all of them had padding. And what about chafing? And what about walking and going through the whole process? And I even have a picture that I'm posting tomorrow of the Anglesey leg, which is really cool. And I mean, it's really beautiful. You look at the wood and everything. And my heroine mentions that because he shows her his foot during the meeting in the Lion's Den, because they want to tell each other about each other. She's seen him from afar in Captivated by the Lion, which was my second to last Lion's Den book. And she just sees him, and that's just it for her. She's like, oh my God. She looks at him, she sees, his beautiful auburn hair, and he's so broad and everything. And you can't tell from a distance if somebody has, an artificial limb. But he failed in that contest. Edmund Broadbank won the woman that day because he's afraid of heights. And they had to climb to the ceiling. So he didn't pass that test. But anyway, so Mrs. Dovelion has it in for him this time. She's giving him a second chance, but there are heights involved in this as well.
Oh, not again. Oh, that would be terrifying.
Heights and a grappling hook outside. The first contest is just to go to the second floor balcony and then climb up, and then the fourth floor balcony and climb up, and then throw it across the narrow alleyway to the building across the street. I tortured him like a lot. And yeah, he did kind of,
poor lamb.
What's a nice way to say that he lost his lunch? Anyway, leaning over the balcony. And anyway, so I try to have humor, and I try to have, what I would consider normal everyday feelings involved. But anyway, yes, there's a happily ever after.
Who's she?
Oh yeah, I should tell you about her. Lady Kit. Lady Catherine Huntington, I'm sorry. She was very good friends with two of the women in my other Lion's Den books. And she's a hellion. She has to get married before her 21st birthday in order to inherit money that her father left her, because her mother is ill and she has no other way to pay the bills. So she needs to get married. And it's supposed to be a marriage of convenience. But conveniently, she sees him and she's like, oh my goodness. And he sees her and he's like, who is that? So anyway,
So it's a marriage of convenience where they conveniently like each other to begin with.
Yeah.
and he springs it on her when they have their meeting, and he's like, "So, just how long do you want to keep this marriage of convenience?" And she's like, lost for words. So, but anyway, sorry,
Fun.
I ramble.
No,
I
no,
finally got to the point.
yeah.
I think so. Sorry.
Great. There was all the things that I want. And then we still have like a bajillion Duke's cards from you coming. Is that right?
I just finished book 11 yesterday. I rewrote the ending 3 times. So, but yeah, there's 5 more.
Okay. Okay. I love me a Colleen Admirand hero. Those are the good ones.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Awesome. So actually the first book that released this week is Anna's book. And it's The Duke in the Darkness, and it's book 1 in the Dukes of Darkness series. And this is Dragonblade Flame, right?
I don't know. I'm just excited to be with Dragonblade. I'm not sure.
All right. Can you tell us the book?
Yeah. So the series, and excuse me, I'm just coming off a cold, so my voice is a little rough. So the series is called The Dukes of Darkness, and is about 4 men who are all struggling with their pasts, especially having bad fathers, and how they never had a good parental image in their life until they all ended up at Eton, where they were all sent just to get away, right? That's where their fathers all sent them. And there they met Anthony Titus, who was a master of arms, who taught them how to fight. But more importantly, he became the father they never had. And each one was trying to learn a different lesson. And so each book sort of focuses on that different lesson that they were trying to learn about themselves. And for book 1, The Duke in the Darkness, it's Devlin Raines, Duke of Dartmoor, and he is struggling with the idea of control. He found out his father was just a nasty piece of work who beat his mother and sister and beat him and was into all kinds of illegal things and all kinds of unscrupulous, horrible things. And Devlin finds out about it when he comes back from the wars. And so the way he finds out about it is really tragic. His father was in a business relationship with a man named Chandler, and Chandler was going to turn him in and go straight. His father couldn't let that happen, so he sets an ambush for the Chandler family carriage, kills Chandler, his wife, and they think they kill his 15-year-old daughter, Peyton. And so what happened?
Not a nice guy.
Oh, not a nice guy at all. And so Devlin finds this out, and he ends up having to spend the rest of his life correcting his father's sins. Fast forward 10 years, he's at a club in London, and this really beautiful, seductive, confident woman, it seems oddly familiar, but he can't quite place her, comes up and flirts with him. And he realizes soon that it's Peyton Chandler, pretty much come back from the grave. She had been hiding in France because she thought someone was out to kill her, of course. And she is there to ruin him. She wants to take everything that he loves and holds dear, and she sets out to do exactly that. But they find out, of course, about halfway through that the villain isn't the person she thought it was. It's not him. Spoilers, I'm not going to give the rest of it away, but they have to learn to trust each other and work together. And there's a lot of sexiness and flirtation and a happily ever after swords and guns and explosions, literally.
Mayhem. General mayhem.
Mayhem ensues. Yep.
Nice.
Awesome. So we get found family with the Dukes of the series, and then we get enemies to lovers in the book itself.
Yep.
So much fun. And I love the stories where they're young men that are kind of looking for their way and find their way, and then end up bonded together. Those are extra fun. Awesome. Well, that sounds like big fun. I can't wait for the rest of the series too.
Me too.
The next book that comes out this week is Anne's book, and it's Secrets at Selwyn Castle, and it's book 1 in the Beaumont Secrets series. Can you tell us about this one?
Sure. So this is a series that's romance with like a pinch of mystery. Like some of them have more mystery and some have less. I don't think that I would call them cozy mysteries exactly. It's more like 2 parts romance, 1 part mystery. But Secrets at Selwyn Castle, it started with, I wanted to write a Christmas novella, and it ended up being longer than a novella. It is still set at Christmas, so it's got a Christmas house party. The male lead is a second son who unexpectedly inherited the title, and he's got this plan that he's going to set his younger brother up with someone to secure the succession, because he's never going to get married for reasons. This is one of those stories where both of the leads think they're never going to get married for different reasons, and you as a reader, knowing it's a romance, are just like laughing at them when they tell each other
not
this.
gonna work for them. So.
Yeah. You don't know what genre this is. So he sets up this house party, and then things start going wrong. And one of the biggest things that goes wrong is that someone is stealing jewelry. They have a jewel thief, and that's the part of the mystery element. One of the other things that goes wrong is a lot of the people have secrets. There's a reason why it's called Secrets at Selwyn Castle. There are multiple characters who are hiding things, including the female lead, who has like a scandalous background that she's hiding because she thinks it's too terrible. So she's got secrets, and she and the male lead both have reasons not to marry, or they think they do. And because it's a romance, over the course of the story, you can see that there's attraction between them. And I guess this would be a he falls first kind of narrative, where he has to do a little convincing to convince her that.
Big fan of he falls first.
Right.
Especially if he falls hard first.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably accurate. I mean, it's a house party story, so there's a lot of interaction crammed into like 3 weeks. And it's as I said earlier, it's a Christmas story. So for people looking for Christmassy vibes, maybe a little later in the year, this would be great. This is part of the Sweet Dreams line. So there are no open door sex scenes, just kissing only.
I love that Dragonblade delineates by heat level, because it means you can choose whatever you want to read at whatever point you want to read it. So you can read across the spectrum, and you know what you're getting when you go into it. So it's like knowing you're going to get a happily ever after. You also know what heat level you're going to get.
Yeah,
it means you can really let go and go along for the ride. So awesome. How many books are there in the series?
4. So this is the first of 4.
Awesome. And everybody has secrets, and there's a little bit of mystery in every one of them.
Yes. More mystery in some than others. There might be poison in one of the later ones. But yeah, there's a little bit of mystery in each of the books.
Very cool. It's still hot here, but I am like way ready to get into like pumpkin spice everything.
Yeah.
And a Christmas novel sounds pretty good right now. So awesome. Well, the other book that releases this week is Sarah Bennett's book, and it's book 2 it's Tempting the Duchess, and it's book 2 in the Disgraceful Duchess series. So I'll make sure, like I said before, I'll make sure I put that link in the comments with everybody else, and we'll catch up with Sarah on another time. But since this is the first time we've had a chance to talk to Anne and Anna, Colleen, we talked to you long.
No problem.
But since this is the first time we've had a chance to talk to Anne and Anna, I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about writing process. And how it is that I know Colleen talks about the characters talking to her and making her change their names and such. And it always really interests me about what the writing process is like for you. What part of the story do you get first? Do you get the characters first, or the plot first? Or, how do you set out to write a series?
Anne, do you want to talk about that first?
Okay, I guess I can. And I feel like this is a little different. This is the first time I've written a series. So I had to be thinking about what's happening next. I had to think about who are the leads going to be and what is the situation. Previously, I used to be a pantser. So I would get like a premise for a story, and then I might think, okay, what characters would be needed to make this plot work? So for Secrets at Selwyn Castle, when I developed it, I was like, okay, it's going to be a Christmas house party, and the male lead is going to be older than the female lead. It's a little bit of an age gap. He's 37 to 25. And then I was like, well, why is he not married already then? Because if he's a nobleman, you would think he'd be married. So that's how that character was developed, is that I had to ask myself, why is he not married? And then I came up with this backstory, tragic past and things like that. I'm not going to go into all the details, but so that's how I typically come up with an idea. It's like I get a premise or a situation. Sometimes it's just even like an inciting incident that I think of. And then I think about what would the characters have to be like to fit this. And then even when I have an outline, as I have for the later books that I've drafted for this series, the characters do change a lot. I might go in knowing that a character has glasses, but I don't realize until I'm writing that one of his nervous quirks is taking his glasses off and cleaning the lenses even when they don't need to be cleaned. So there are a lot of things, even when I have an outline, there are a lot of things that come up and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that about the character.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think part of writing is getting to know the people that you're writing about, even if you set out with, a pretty rigid structure.
Oh, definitely.
Well, what about you, Anna?
I usually start with a place, actually.
Oh, cool.
I love architecture. I should have been a historical architect or something to do with architecture. And so for me, I have a really deep sense of place. So I will usually think about a house, a grand estate, a place somewhere in Regency London, and then the characters sort of evolve out of there. And so, like with this series, this first book, it started actually, the C.S. Lewis book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Well, what if you had a wardrobe that didn't take you to a wonderful place like Narnia? What if you had a wardrobe that took you someplace dark and devious and all of that? So Peyton has this armoire. When she opens it, it's her gun cabinet. It has all of her weapons in it. And on the doors, she has put this map of how all the suspects in her parents' murder fit together and what they were doing that night.
Oh, I love this about our heroine.
And so I started from that idea, and it was sort of like, okay, now, what was the event that she's tracking? What would cause her to do this? And then whenever I come up with conflict in a book, I always focus on one of the characters and what is it that they want? What is the one thing that they want? What's stopping them from getting it? And it has to be the other person.
Yeah.
I have to somehow manipulate it. And if they both want the same thing and only one of them can win it, perfect, right? And so that's where the conflict comes. I can't pants. I don't know how people can pants it. I can pants a scene, a chapter, but I have to have an idea of where the book's going and how it's going to resolve, because the last thing I want to do is write 95,000 words and not have an ending that works. Or the worse is you write yourself out of your conflict by about 30,000 words and you have nothing else to go on, and suddenly your novel became a novella. And so I always have to do that. So I admire people that can pants it and come out with these perfectly formed, structured novels, because I just can't. That's not me.
It's interesting that you talk about conflict, because Jenny Cruzy talks about that conflict a lot, and that can drive your story. So like if you set it up right so that they both can't have the same, they both can't have what they want, then that can drive your story, and you just have to kind of hold on and wait.
Because you have to have two things. You have to have the conflict, which is pushing them apart, but then you have to have the force that's keeping them together. So it's really hard to create all of those things in a book. I don't like writing series concepts, because those really frighten me, to have to come up with this overarching arc for everything. To me, that is so much harder than just writing standalone books. So, but yeah, you have to figure out what it is why are they at loggerheads, and why do they still love each other anyway, despite that? So
they could just walk away. Like,
exactly.
why can't they just walk away?
Exactly. Because in the real world, we're getting away from people we don't like.
Yeah.
They have to stay together. So what is it? And you have to make it realistic, just like you have to have a realistic resolution at the end too. It can't be was it a Dizek Machina that they say? It just can't happen poof out of the blue.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yes, Machina. Culling. Big old pastor, aren't you?
Okay.
Are you a big old pastor?
Actually, I used to totally be all about the synopsis. And for the first 30 years that I did this, it was always about the synopsis. Once I started writing for Dragonblade, I had all my synopses laid out. And then Catherine said, I really would like, how many guards are in the Duke's Guard? I would like all of them. I'm like, there's 16. She's like, I want them. I'm like, okay. And I've been nodding my head okay with each one that I write, because I do have the arc for all of them, because it's in who they are and why they're a member of the Guard and their personalities, and they're all related. But each story is a little bit different because of the characters and the situations they're in. But I had a reviewer say, this is just going to be another story. I don't know why I'm going to read this, but I start to read it and I can't put it down. I'm like, well, maybe that's why you read it, because I don't know why you read it. But so they're not the same, but they're similar. But it's really hard when I have all the books on my computer and I have all my files here with all their names, because I like to interweave everyone into the next story. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember the butler's name. And I'm like going through trying to, you try to find, you put one word to try to find their name in a document that's like 75,000 words. It's like, I'm nuts by the time I do that. But so Evelyn, that's why I'm nuts all the time. Whenever you ask me to talk about a new book, I'm like, I can't. I don't know where to start.
But you need a series Bible. You need a series Bible that has everything all laid out.
I have it. And it's a beautiful notebook. I printed out the cover of Mending the Duke's Pride, because he was the prettiest one, and it's empty.
Quite pretty.
Because I have the cast of characters from the first 4 books, and then I was like, I don't know what else to do. Sorry, my phone is singing, but I never could catch up to it because of deadlines. Which I love deadlines, but deadlines. So,
do you find that your characters change a lot for you as you're going through the book?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking everybody, but you can start.
Sometimes. Well, like every book. They just, I'll be writing and all of a sudden they'll be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to go there. And I don't like my name. So, yeah.
I don't like my name is an interesting thing. Poor Anna, I'm sorry that we're having
yeah.
So colds are just miserable now, and then you have to everybody going back to school.
Yeah,
my kid keeps wanting to hug me, and it's like, okay, but
they're little germ factories that kids
don't breathe too much. Don't breathe too much. But.
Yeah.
And it's the changing of the seasons too, with everything that's out there right now. All the nice goldenrod in my yard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what about you? Do you find your characters change for you over the course of a book?
It more when I'm pantsing, because then I literally know like nothing about the characters. One of the things that I was thinking as we were talking earlier is that, so I have ADHD and I'm autistic, and the autistic traits in particular show up in characters without my intending it, because like I joke, I don't know how neurotypical people think. So sometimes I'll write a character who I think is neurotypical, and then an autistic beta reader of mine will be, well, she seems kind of autistic. So there are ways in which they get beyond my control. Simply because they pick up traits that I don't think of as being different from the norm, but maybe they really are. So the book that I'm drafting right now is the last book in this quartet, and the male lead finds a bottle on the beach, and I had to come up with, well, why is he on the beach? Okay, so he beach combs as a hobby. And then I was like, okay, what does he do with what he finds? He keeps it. And then from there, it was like really simple to be like, well, if he's a collector, maybe he's autistic and this is his special interest. And I actually hadn't intended to write an autistic male lead that just became that way. So lots of unintentional neurodivergent representation in my stories.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have a kiddo who's pretty significantly ADD, and one who's just barely on the spectrum. And I find that I do just the opposite. In like I pull characteristics into my books because of watching the way they move through the world, and it's just like it's really interesting to see. Okay, if this is the way you look at the world, how do you fall in love? It's like I find it to be like really lovely, and that whole idea of because I think one of the things that we love in our heroes and heroines is when they can actually see each other, like really see you for who you are. And I think that it's like the more often we have neurotypical ways of doing that, the better off we are, because that's the way the world is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So, do you have special places that you need to write? Are there special rituals or things that you do? I always find myself reaching for a cup of coffee, and if I don't have a cup of coffee, I still stick my hand out all the time, reaching for it. Are there certain things that you have to have in place to be able to write?
Yeah, I have to have coffee. But I have to have coffee when I'm not writing too. So it's just my coffee cup never leaves my hand. It's more about having outdoors. So you can't see it, but the other side of the room, it's a sunroom. It's all glass. I've got my woods and the stream and my garden. So I need to be surrounded by greenery. What I find is interesting is I try to write mostly on the computer because it makes it easier for revisions and things. But if I get stuck or there's a scene that just isn't working, I grab pencil and paper and I do it longhand. And I find that really helps work through the writer's block a lot.
Can you read your handwriting when you're done?
Sometimes I can usually figure it out by context. You know, I tell my students because I teach college and I know they're the little darlings that gave me this cold last week. We started last week. Yeah. So they got vacation day yesterday and today I wasn't there. I tell them when I write on the board, I'm like, I'm old. I write in cursive. If you can't read it, let me know. I've got bad handwriting. I will tell you what it is. If you can read it, but you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, let me know and I'll translate. So, because it's in English, because it's an English class. So,
It's so funny about cursive. I didn't realize my kids weren't learning it until my mother sent them a card, and they couldn't read the card because Grandma wrote it in cursive, and it's like, oh, well, no.
I think it's like a hot button issue. Some people are advocating for it, that teaching cursive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those big controversial things in education these days.
When did they stop teaching cursive? Because my kids are all, 36 and older. So
when No Child Left Behind came through and they started testing and basing funding on testing.
I'm sorry, when was that though?
The first Bush administration.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
2001.
Yeah, my oldest is 23. So
yeah,
and they usually learn in grade.
Yeah, okay. And so they stopped teaching cursive because they couldn't. How do you test for cursive? You can't. And so I would have done the same thing. I'd stopped teaching cursive and spent more time on those things that we get tested over. And the idea behind it is they will say, well, they're always around keyboards. They're always around screens. They don't need to write longhand anymore. But that's not true. And they're not nearly as technologically savvy as we would like to think they are, first of all. And second, there are times when you have to write pen and paper. And all the data shows that when you take notes by hand with pen and paper, you remember more and you do better on tests than if you just type it in.
That's how I used to study for tests.
So I have to write down the things, like I have to write down your books before you come on, or there's no way I'd be able to get through the intro and be able to say what the books are because I don't remember it if I don't write it. And what you said about like unblocking yourself that way, I think there's something about being able to write cursive, being able to write fast, which is also why I asked about reading it, because when you end up going so fast that it starts to turn into like just like a long line. But I think your brain does different things that way.
It does.
Yeah, which is a surprise.
The brain is amazing.
Okay. Sorry.
Let's not end it on that quote. Let's come up with something better, Dan.
It really is, even when it forgets things like the words you're looking for or why you went into the other room. So
exactly.
Maybe Evelyn, you know the answer because the last time, 2 times before this, for my June book, I had my copy of Errol Flynn's Robin Hood. A great DVD, love it. I've had it's like my 3rd copy. I can't find it. I had it that day, and it's somewhere in my house.
Uh-oh.
And I need to find it because I have to watch it. I have to get my Errol fix.
No idea. But I
you
the
don't
first
know.
time I was ever exposed to Errol Flynn was my high school best friend, who was way cooler than I was. Loved Errol Flynn, and she said, "You've got to see this. You've got to see this." So like 16-year-old girls like just geeking out over Errol Flynn.
So I think they filmed that Robin Hood in Chico, California, which is where I live.
Oh,
In the
cool.
Bidwell Park. I may be misremembering, but there was a famous Robin Hood that they filmed in Bidwell Park. It's like a giant urban forest. You know?
Oh, okay. That
Very
sounds
cool.
about right. Because there were a
Yeah.
lot of scenes in there that were huge forest scenes.
Yeah.
Very, very
It was
cool.
1939. I wasn't there, but
I wasn't there either.
but it sounds beautiful. So you don't know, Evelyn? You have
I have
no.
no clue.
no
I'm
help.
sorry.
It was right here when
add
we
it
were.
to the long list of things that Evelyn does not know or remember. It's a huge list. Big,
It's
long.
not under the couch. You know, sometimes things are under the couch.
Mm.
Yeah, I even had my grandsons looking like, "Can you look under there?" And I asked the dogs. They're like, "We don't know. We didn't watch it."
It might be time for 4.
Yeah. I don't know.
Ladies, it was a treat to talk to you today. Anne and Anna, it was great to finally meet you. We spent a lot of time with email and messages, and it's lovely always to be able to put a face with a name. So it's great to meet you. I'm very excited about your Dragonblade debuts, and I will make sure that
Congratulations.
I'll make sure that I put the links to all 4 books in the comments so you can grab them if you haven't got them already. I'm going to say the spiel that I give every week because it's true every week. Dragonblade books are their best deal on pre-order and release, so you want to grab them right then. If you can't get them then you can always read in Kindle Unlimited. So, ladies, thanks again for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank
Thank you.